Hello everybody and welcome to the very first episode of Landmark Bay. Today we're going to explore the retail area and the amusement park, and we're also going to take a look behind the scenes at the backstage areas and the park's facilities. Right now we're hovering by the parking lot, and the rep building there at the bay is the water treatment facility center. It keeps the bay hospitable for all the flora and fauna, and we'll just pretend it's also responsible for the park's freshwater supply. Since this is not a cinematic trailer like the one I published last week, the camera work is going to be a bit dodgy and a bit shaky. I still have to get into the swing of things, but I hope you can still enjoy the episode. First things first, this is the parking lot with some of those nifty pre-built cars that I downloaded months ago before the DLC. The Spooky DLC and the Moonster DLC came out. So they're still a bit chunky, but when you see them from afar, they kind of do the job. In the end, it would be really neat if visitors would park their cars or come with a bus and then enter the park. I laid out the infrastructure for them to do so, but as with many things with this game, we just need to pretend. Just like we're pretending that this rep building here actually houses a water treatment facility. And I made it red because I was a bit inspired, just like the rest of the retail area, by Scandinavian architecture, and particularly Norwegian architecture. And I just thought it would really blend in well, or actually it stands out but somehow blends in, if you catch my drift. The bridge in front of the water treatment center is very much different. To be quite honest, I didn't really have a style in mind when I built it. All I could think of was that that bridge needed to be covered. Otherwise, visitors would see too much of what is actually a really ugly plant. I'll use the other function to just, that's right, rotate all around it. It's as functionable as it can get. In other words, it's not. But I just like having these little knickknacks that kind of add to the realism of the park. There's some cable work that I'm sure every controlling agency would not approve of, and there's some cameras, and there's a little golf cart that I downloaded the other day from the shop. So there's just a lot going on. You can't get in without entering the code, and there are these signs and cameras that just discourage you to go any further. But we're going to go any further, and that is by exploring the art shapes here that make up the actual sanitation part of the plant. It just kind of works well when you see it from afar, and there's some pipes and some random splashing here going on. I just think it makes up for a really neat little corner. It's very small. Everything in this park is very, very small. It's somewhere located in Europe where, as my fellow Europeans know, space is a rare commodity. But even in the American amusement parks, from what I've seen on Google Maps, is that it's all about creating the illusion that there's something really big going on. So I just try to follow that skill. Now, let's hover to the retail area, and if you don't mind my camera work, I'm just going to glide by because I think that's the easiest way to tell something about it. Here's the Lighthouse Museum. I have no idea why there's a lighthouse, let alone a lighthouse museum in the wetlands area, but there you have it. That's an amusement park, and it actually houses one of these cats rides, so that the people who would visit the park also visit this part of the park, because I noticed that shops alone will not draw in the visitors. You need attractions nearby. All the other houses, or all the other buildings I should say, house little snack bars, restaurants, gift shops, etc. I can't wait for the umbrellas and the picnic tables with the new update by the end of November. That'll actually make this little plaza functional, and I think that's going to look really, really cool. Right now we still have to pretend. Those umbrellas are downloaded from the workshop as well, and they're made of art shapes. You can recolor them. Here's the main street, our main alley, I should say. Normally you would see it from the other side, but we're just taking a different perspective today. As you can see behind the houses, there's the ugly backstage that you'll find in every park. There are ventilation shafts, there are cargo areas, there's garbage collection and a lot of rubbish that shouldn't be there, but then somebody neglected that, and typical stress that you'll find in every company, because in the end an amusement park is a company. There's not much I can tell you about the retail area for other than that there's a lot going on. I always make sure that I keep the sidelines from a visitor perspective in mind. This is why that roof, this roof right here, is prolonged, because when you're on a peep level, it makes more sense. Maybe in the near future I'll add some windows, but for now it'll do. As you can see, I keep my architecture really simple, really modest. This is something that dates back from my roller coaster tycoon 3 days. Back then, polycount was the only thing that mattered. It's a whole different story with Planet Coaster. But it's this kind of inertia that if you've been building like that for, 7, 8, 9 years, it's really hard to get it out of your system. Other than that, I don't think there's anything wrong with building clever and modestly. Some of the most feature builders out there, they use a lot of beams and nooks and crannies and everything that you would actually see in a real building. So they don't just place a roof like this one here. They would actually support it with beams. I think it's beautiful and it shows dedication. It's just, when are you going to see that? Apart from that one episode on YouTube, you'll never see it again. But at the same time, I do believe that it just eats resources. So I'm just trying to be efficient and frugal here. This is, in case you haven't seen it, this is sort of it's not really a castle. It's just this pavilion, I would say, for Missy Good, which I think is the strongest brand that Planet Coaster created. It's really believable. I could just picture these shops in the streets here. And the Ferris wheel is actually called Super Donut by Missy Good. So it's a 100% branded attraction. I figured that wouldn't hurt so much. There's a lot of purple and pink going on, and even the Ferris wheel looks like a big donut. So thank you, Planet Coaster, for creating such a strong brand. I'm going to take you next to a few of the normal rides. There's of course, the Venetian Carousel. I didn't do much there. I just decided to give it a roof, to give it a building. Then right behind it, there is Bump, which is the Dodgem cars, and next to Bump, let's not forget, there's another little street, and I'm all over the place, I'm sorry. There's a little street that would take you right back to the plaza. Alright. Back to Bump. Talk about Bump here. Honestly, I need to learn how to do camera. Really simple sign, just a few shapes and art shapes together, and I call it a day. That's it. But it works, it just really, really works. Around the World Out in 80 Days, the balloon ride, for that I made this custom balloon, and I could actually show you what happens once it reaches a certain stage. Come on, alright. Because there's a little thing going on. Alright, a lot of waiting, but there we go. Ah, that's right, the balloon takes off. This is something I really, really, really like and appreciate about the other update. I think it was a few months ago, where they added ride sequences, and it really brings your park to life. All right, without much further ado, just one last glimpse at Around the World in 80 Days. I don't know what I had in mind with this backdrop, but somehow it just works. It's very festive. especially since the queue circles the ride. So yeah, I think that works. There's not a gift shop. This is the first custom structure that I ever built, so it's definitely not the prettiest out there, but it has a sentimental value for me. It's the first building I ever built in Planet Coaster, and I was so proud on how I used these the art shapes to create some dormer. I think now with the latest Spooky pack, I should revisit this building. But maybe I should just keep it like it is. I really like it. It's I don't know. It's theme parky. It's weird. It's really something you would only find in a theme park. So, I guess it just works. All right, here is Bewitched. Bewitched is actually a ride, a flat ride. I think it's the best themed flat ride that they ever built in Planet Coaster, because it just really has a strong personality and it doesn't need much. The only thing I did was add a bit of spooky vines and this dead tree, and it was a royal pain in the ass to add the lanterns in the tree and to align them with the branches, but that's really all I needed to do. For the rest, it's just a wonderful ride. I elevated it slightly off the ground, making the witch tower even more over the visitors, and there is an entrance that is hard to overlook. I'm using the fairy tale entrance, but in the right setting you could also think this is actually a really scary entrance. And the path behind that is a normal visitor path, yes, but it acts as a collector area for those who want to queue right along the ride for Bewitched. How did I do that? How did I stop other people from walking in? I placed some benches, and underneath I placed these planters. So that really helped, and nobody's going in there, but everybody who wants to ride Bewitched, they first walk in using the big path, and then they narrow down into the small path. So that's a really simple way to kind of exercise some crowd control. The sign for Bewitched is a tad too simple, I would say. Sorry, I think it needs some work. On the other hand, maybe it just fits the environment right now. I don't know. It's something I would visit at one point, definitely. There is a special effect for Bewitched as well, and we're going to show that a bit faster than the other one. So there's mist coming from underneath the ride itself, and at one point it'll go in a second reverse. It'll accelerate, and something is going to be very explosive. There you have it. It's just a small effect. I don't know if an amusement park would ever utilize something this explosive, but this is where I like to take the liberty to say, well, it's just a game. Other than that, of course, this is not a game. It's a very serious software for serious designers. But okay. What can I show you more? That's right, the food court. The food court is basically just a little building with 2 shops in it and a whole bunch of benches. And it's one of the 7 squares that this whole park is named after, or this part of Landmark Bay is named 7 squares. Because as you can see, or you can see now, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 squares, and yeah, that's where it got its name from. The food court with its colorful flags and buntings and everything, I have no idea when I made it, when I built it, or how I ever came with this concept, but I like it. It's very colorful, it's very amusement parky. I just wish we could print something on those flags. And there's another thing I wish, speaking of flags, and that is that if you see it from the other side, that it doesn't get mirrored. That would be really nice, because this doesn't make any sense. There's a ride here that I almost forgot. It's called Sea Monsters, and it's just it's just this little turning, this little rotating thing, this ride that is so strongly themed that it's really hard to do anything with it except for some sort of a pirate or forlorn shipwreck thing. I think it works. It's small, it's extremely popular, God knows why, but it's extremely popular. And I just kept the theming really simple and on point. It looks really lovely at night, by the way. Now, of course, I should show you. There we are. It's beautiful. I mean, those colors, they just really pop. And yeah, nighttime is magical in Planet Coaster. Now, there are two more things I'd like to show you. One is what I call Wiener Melange. It's the teacup, or in this park, the coffee cup ride, because this reminds me of a coffee pot, not a teapot. And I just decided to give it a bit of a home. I have no idea what I was thinking when the art shapes on the other side turned out to be these weird rectangles, but yeah, that just happens, I guess. It's heavily themed by, or heavily licensed, I should say, by Street Fox Coffee, but the ride itself is called Wiener Melange. The wait time is 40 minutes, and of course, as with every ride, there is the safety notice in place that I kindly borrowed from a few existing amusement parks. Google helped me a hand there, and yeah, that's the coffee pot ride. Wiener Melange by Street Fox Coffee. Right opposite of it is the Night's Inn, that has themed restaurants like Merlin's Fries and Arthur's Eyes, and it's also one of the first buildings I ever built. So again, sentimental value here. I could definitely imagine it being replaced at one point, but right now I think there's something endearing about it. Again, can't wait for picnic tables because they're all around it, providing you a very nice view on the train, if it would ever pass. Right now that train is paused, but if it passes here, you'll see it glide by while you're enjoying your cappuccino, and I think there's just something very idyllic about it. You look out on the crowd collection plaza, as I call it. This is where people exit the dark ride, the storytelling dark ride that is called Royal Bedtime Stories. It's housed in this strange castle. Again, no idea how this whole thing came to be. It was made up out of different experiments, and I wanted something that didn't look too Disney. Yeah, it kind of works. It's a strange structure. It's not iconic. It's not something that, it's not like the Disney hub where everybody is just gawking at the castle. It's nothing like that. It's really clearly a building for dark ride. The inside, there's nothing to see, by the way. It's just one of those flat rides that draw in a lot of people. I think it's the psychedelic flat ride with the green brains and everything. I like the queue. That's what I'm really, really happy about. It's a long ass queue. There's something to see along the line, like a treasure trove, and the shield and the swords. And when you're here, what I like about it is there's a backstage area behind these gates. But when you're here in the queue with a little bit of landscaping, I made it invisible to the visitor. And it's just beautiful. Once you're here, you really are encircled by this old majestic building, and there's a weird minaret-like tower, and I just think it really worked. And this is where you get under the roof, and again, this part also looks really lovely at night because I use the lights to create a bit of an eerie atmosphere, but still friendly. And once you're a bit further away, you can actually admire the castle when you're in the queue. Or not at all if your camera work sucks. Right. Long story short, this is a very popular ride, and yeah. What's left to say? Apart from that, it has the typical ugliness that you'll find on every roof. Ventilation shafts, we'll just imagine these are light domes. There's a little maintenance house on the building. There are floodlights. Speaking of floodlights, I'm going to show you the other floodlights because I've got them hidden all over the park. You can't really see them from peep level, nor should you, but they make the park look realistic at night. One thing that we always forget is that the lanterns on the streets and the lanterns in the little alleys, they are not eliminating what you see in Disneyland or what you see in Efteling or Alton Towers. It's actually the hidden floodlights that really illuminate the upper part of buildings and that accentuate trees and statues. And so there's a lot going on in amusement parks that you have no idea of, and neither should you as a normal visitor. But I just try to incorporate those little gems, those little functional gems into my parks. Everything you see here is redundant and unnecessary, but I just think it adds to the realism. Last but not least, for last but not least, is the central station and the hub where you literally enter the park and fawn out in either direction. This is the shortcut to the amusement area, whereas the other takes you down to, into the shopping paradise. This is the Main Street station. It's called Fairy Tale Square, and you get there after you pass the security check. There's a map of the park that I update with every time I play the game, and it just adds to a bit of realism, I guess. And the last thing is the building right here, which is going to be demolished with the next expansion project, which is called Phase 1. Right now we'll just pretend it's some majestic, beautiful villa on the lake that used to be home to many glamorous parties, but sadly we're going to demolish it in favor of a very beautiful flat ride. It's not even a ride, and that's all I'm going to say. And in the back you see a very nondescript building, and that's the last thing I'm going to explore for today. It's a station that is the only other place for visitors to hop on or hop off the landmark Railroad Express. There's a symbol roundabout here, and then there's the path taking you back either directly to the park, to the villa, or you take the little forest trail right here. And this forest trail is going to be gone with the next updates. It won't be there for long, because again it needs to make place for Phase 1, the first expansion project for Landmark Bay. And I'm actually sorry to see this go, because what I like about it is how it feels like a park and not so much like a forest. It's not that dense, but at the same time you feel far removed from the actual park. I think I've been blabbing long enough. I'm going to leave you now with a few very beautiful cinematic shots of Landmark Bay, and in the next update I will show you how this area right here is going to be home to the expansion of Landmark Bay, of the amusement area, and I'm just going to present you the plans in the next update. Thank you very much for watching, see you next time, and don't forget to subscribe. Bye!